Hello from my favourite place in the entire world. It's the MKM Stadium car park, which is freezing cold, but everybody's happy because Hull City have made it 3 wins in a week for the first time, well, probably since last year under Tim Walsh, I think, when they won. They beat Cardiff, they beat QPR and Stoke. It's been that long since City won 3 in a week, but they beat Swansea by 2-1. So to back up wins at Southampton and at Preston on Tuesday night. It was hard work in the second half. Swansea played really, really well, to be fair. But goals in the first half from Oli McBurnie and Regan Slater give City a win that moves them on to 50 points. So I think they're probably safe from relegation now. But they're looking up. They're just 5 points off the top 2 with a game in hand against that really feared Watford team, the Watford team that we were so scared of earlier in the month that we had to call the game off 15 minutes before kickoff. Anyway, it wasn't pretty at times in the second half, but it was effective. They rode their luck at times. In fact, they rode their luck at times in the first half. Victories should have scored twice, but alas, when you're at the top of the table, perhaps those things go for you. And when you're at the bottom of the table, as we saw many times last year, maybe they don't. But yeah, that's been a good week, hasn't it? City 3 wins, up to 50 points, 5 points off the top 2. They've got a 7-point gap to the teams outside the top 6. So it's all looking rather rosy, isn't it? They've got players coming back from injury. They got new signings on the pitch today in Kieran Dowd, albeit later than they would have hoped for, but they got him on the pitch in the end. Yu Hirakawa delivered a wonderful cameo, could have got himself a goal, could have set one up for, or perhaps should have set one up for Carl Joseph. He was like a little terrier when he came on. So that was another plus point. Getting Gauhart back in from the start, getting 55 minutes, an hour or so out of Joff in his recovery from a calf injury is another plus point. Another goal from McBurnie and an absolute whopper from Regan Slater from 25 yards into the top corner just before half time. So it wasn't City's best performance, but at the end of a week where they've travelled all the way down to Southampton, they've gone to Preston North End, they've claimed victories. I don't think anybody really cares what the game was like. It's about winning, and that's exactly what they have done. And that's the game that last season they wouldn't have won. You know, having gone 2-0 up on the cusp of half time, you have to give credit to the opposition, who I think Swansea are a good side and perhaps better in some ways than what their, I think, 16th position suggests when they've got players like Cabango, although I think Cabango is a good defender, but his penalty, the penalty he gave away for handball was ridiculous. Ronald out wide, Vipotnik up front, obviously didn't have a great day in that department today, but he's had better ones before. But I thought Swansea played some neat football. The manager deserves credit though, because he could sense that Swansea were obviously the better side in the second half. They were getting plenty of joy inside our inside left channel, getting in between, inside from Maywell. He brought Matty Jacob on. They went to a back 5, low block. And from then on, really, even though Swansea scored, it was coming when Liam Cullen headed in just before the hour. They never looked in that much danger when he went quite defensive. And although they struggled to keep the ball meaningfully up front, Swansea were kind of restricted to efforts from distance, which Panda dealt with really well. I mean, he was a virtual bystander in the first half, Ivor, but he made 2 or 3 really good saves in the second half to keep City in front. And yeah, I think Swansea will feel aggrieved that they didn't get something out of it. But good side, we've said this before, that good sides, when they're not at their best, they find a way to win the game. They find a way to get through it. We said it here against Wrexham, that Wrexham, although City played well, you know, Kiefer Moore missed an open goal. He missed a penalty. His penalty was saved. Wrexham should have come away from here with a point. But City, albeit the better side on that night before Christmas, found a way to win the game. Yes, they were much more fluent than they were today, but, you know, in the key moments, they were the better team. You know, in the key moments, the penalty, McBurnie, fantastic goal from his penalty, wonderful strike from Regan, his 2nd of the season, and they got themselves into a really strong position. Yes, they had the setback of conceding the goal, but they kept them at arm's length. Really determined display as the game wore on. I was a bit surprised that the referee, Josh Smith, only added 3 minutes on. A bit like I was surprised a week ago at Southampton that they only put 4 minutes on. But look, we'll take it. Thank you very much. Any little marginal gain, as Dave Brailsford would have said a few years ago, you'll take the little wins, and that's all that matters. So as I say, City up to 4th in the Championship after 28 games I think it is now, and they've got a game in hand, of course, against Watford, and now a clear week before Blackburn away at Ewood Park next weekend, which is a big opportunity to rest players. A lot of them are walking wounded, as we'll come to in just a minute. Hopefully one or two more signings come in the door. Paddy McNair and Toby Collier next week. As I say, Kieran Dow got a run out this afternoon, which was great for him, and minutes in the tank for Gelhardt as well. So let's take some questions before we hit the road, Jack. Let's have a look. Right. Robert says, awful game today. I thought it was a decent watch. I don't think City were at their best by any stretch of the imagination, but it's at the end of a long week. They've got 2 wins. Sometimes you're not going to play. They were exceptional at Preston. They passed it around. They created chances. They were light years ahead of Preston. It was a wonderful performance. This was a different type of performance. They weren't at the best. They weren't as free flowing. You have to give the opposition credit. I thought that Swansea were decent. They weren't spectacular, but I thought Swansea were decent. Carved out, particularly in the first half, 2 incredible chances from Vipotnik. But you ride your luck, and it went our way. But they grafted. They showed big balls to see it out and to win the game. And I think, who really cares what the game was like at the end of it? Near pretty much a full house from a home point of view. They've come and watched their team win. The team played well in the first half, although did give up some chances. They could have made it 3, in fairness. I mean, after going 2-0 up, they had a couple of really good chances to put the game to bed at 3-0. Hirakawa did some brilliant work, cut inside and fizz one at goal. The goalkeeper, Vigouroux, made a good save. Joseph on the rebound should have scored. That would have made it 3. So they had chances to kill the game off at the start of the second half. Miller shot blocked. 1 or 2 other nearly moments. So, yeah, look, you've got to, if you're going to be successful, it's about winning different types of games. And I think they've shown in the week, away at Southampton, they played some great football at times, won the game. Preston at Deepdale on Tuesday dominated the game, played wonderfully, won the game with a clean sheet. Today, not quite so well, but they did what they needed to do and they've won the game. So I think they've shown all types of elements to their game in the last week, and they've won 3 matches in a row, which is really hard in this league, and they've done it in the space of 7 days, which is a fantastic return. And as the gaffer said to me at full time, if somebody had said to me at the start of the week before the Southampton game that you'd get 9 points from 9, I'd have said you were crazy. That's what he thinks, and I put it to him, you're only 5 points off the top 2 with a game in hand. Can you dream? I mean, we're well into the second half of the season. Why can't you look further ahead? There's no reason not to look, to be excited. There's no reason. Football's about dreamers, isn't it? And he said it's okay. Why can't we dream? Why can't we dream of getting into second? And absolutely. I mean, it's a long way off. There's a lot of work to be done, but they're in a phenomenal position. And I do feel they're getting stronger. I feel as a group they're getting stronger. Players are coming back. Players are coming in. As a group, they're learning an awful lot after the first half of the season. So if you can't dream, at the end of January, when you've just won 3 in a row and you're 4th in the table, feasibly could be 2 points off the top 2. Why not? What's the point if you can't? So it wasn't vintage City, Robert, but they've got the job done. Steve says the second half stress was worth it to see Regan's banger. Yeah, it was an absolute foot-like attraction engine, wasn't it? Absolute cracker from Regan. I said to him afterwards, he came into the media room, and so many times over the last year or so we've seen him take shots and it's gone just wide, or shots have been blocked. It was really nice to see it fly into the top corner. So yeah, I thought he was man of the match today, by the way, Regan. I thought he was brilliant. Jordan Akintola is a liability. Well, he goes from the sublime to the ridiculous. The sublime on Tuesday night, his run and cross for Miller's goal, but then he does he sort of mounts somebody outside the box and gives away a completely unnecessary free kick, and out of nothing that Swansea have got a chance to put the ball in the box with 3 or 4 minutes to go, and you're just like scratching your head. He's wild, and you can't help but like him, but sometimes he just does things on a football pitch and you are left scratching your head a bit. But anyway, Danny, Swansea probably the worst team to play at the end of a 3-game week, with the amount of chasing we had to do. Yeah, they made us work hard for it. The way they knocked the ball around, some of the interplay, the little triangles they played around the corner of the box, they were getting in so easily, and it was a real problem early in that second half. But the manager corrected it. He went back 5, put Matty Jacob on, who made a real difference, and kind of closed those passing lanes, as they like to call them, off now, really well. And then what that did, it kind of kept Swansea outside the box, and they were having to put crosses in, which is not really their strong point. So you have to give kudos to the manager and his staff for seeing that. I mean, it was obvious to 21,000 people what was happening, but he reacted, he changed it, and he stopped those avenues. And Swansea really, kind of, once he did that, never looked... You're always nervous because the game's in the balance, it's only 2-1, who knows what could happen. But I felt a lot more comfortable with a back 5, and those little passes in between the City defenders out wide were getting in. That stopped, and they kind of kept them at arm's length as the game wore on, which was really good. Robert missed Crooks, but I think Coyle and Slater are the most improved. Yeah, I thought Louis had it tough first half because I didn't think Carl Joseph was getting back to help him enough, and the 2 chances that Vipotnik had came from balls out wide from a player that City fans will know well, in Josh Tymon. So but they toughened up second half. Louis got a bit more cover, but yeah, I think Regan's been, this last couple of 3 months, Regan's been absolutely brilliant, and he's probably been their best player, actually. So, or he's certainly been up there with their best and most consistent players. And with midfielders coming into the club and Lundstrom getting back to fitness, Regan's the first name on the team sheet, and I'm really pleased for him. But yeah, I'd agree about Crooks. On the subject of Crooks, he was named on the bench. He did sort of amble through a warm-up, but the fact he didn't come on when the game was getting a bit hairy suggests that there was a problem. He's had a tight hamstring for a little while, and he's played on through it. He was a doubt at Southampton last week, but he did play. He played at Deepdale, but they didn't want to take any risks. So hopefully, not playing today and a week of kind of rest for him should heal it, and he should be okay for Ewood Park next Saturday, which I think there's a big following. The club have sold out of their initial allocation of 2,000 or so tickets, more on sale, and it's not the worst journey in the world. So if you're thinking of going, get down to Ewood Park if you can and are able. Paul's another one for missing Crooks. Yeah, unsettling the opposition. Yeah, said it in the second half. I thought we really missed Crooks's kind of languid ability just to sort of ghost around and get his foot in and be a pain in the arse, quite frankly. And there's nobody better in this division than Crooks being a pain in the backside. So hopefully he's okay for the weekend at Rovers. Matthew says, bossed it first half. Swansea had to chase the game. Second, massive win. Yeah, I thought we were the better. I thought Swansea. I thought it was fairly even first half. If anything, Swansea might have shaded it. Had the 2 great chances, but we had deserved penalty. It was a stupid thing to do. Great penalty from Oli. Wonderful finish from Regan. Finished the half really strongly. Could have had a third. And as I said before, rode the luck in the second half. But Swansea aren't coming here to roll over. They're in decent form as well. 3 wins in 6. Yes, I know their away form isn't great. But they've made a real improvement under Vitor Matos, and they've got some good players in their side. Let's not forget that. So give credit to City for doing what they did. And as I say, once Cullen scored, and it was a good finish, flicked header at the near post from Cullen, good player, linked with City a couple of years ago. So there was interest as well, I think. Once they got that goal, and City changed tactically, I think that was the difference. What else have we got? Danny noticed McBurnie with ice on his leg at the end, and Joseph holding. I think they've got a lot of walking wounded. He wanted McBurnie just ran himself into the ground. I spoke to him on Thursday, and I asked him. He said he was feeling fine. He's just as he says, he's getting on a bit. He's going to feel it. He's done a lot of running in the last 2 and 3/4 games, and he was just taken off as a precaution. So again, they'll tread carefully with Crooks, with Joseph. With Oli over the next few days. I don't think any of those will be doing much training. I don't think they need to. At this stage of the season now, it's just about ticking over and going game to game. They've got a lot of, I think, 6 games in February. 4 at home in the league, obviously, plus the Chelsea Cup game. So it is just a case of, look, patch him up, get ready, go at Blackburn. I think not having that clear midweek is absolutely crucial this week. What else have we got? Robert, any goings? Not at this stage. I think it's kind of as you are at the minute. The obvious one remains Brandon Williams, so we'll see what happens with that. But, you know, Casey Palmer going has made a big difference to the wage bill. Yes, it's only one player out in terms of squad numbers, but Casey was on a sizable chunk of salary. So him going, you know, that could be 1.5, 2 players coming in on salary. So Paddy McNair was here this afternoon, from what I gather, which is good. We expect him, that deal to get done early next week, and then Toby Collier to follow. If Collier isn't done Monday, Tuesday, don't panic. There's no panic, I'm told, but it just takes some deals take a little bit longer to get smoothed over. But as I understand it, there's no issue with Collier. That might be later on next week. But yeah, McNair is, you know, for me, McNair is a really important one, with Shemi being out for 6 or 7 weeks. You know, Egan and Charlie going through played a lot of minutes. Obviously, Famewo's done a sterling job at left half. Hopefully, Gilo's not too far away. Maybe Blackburn, maybe the game after that. We'll have to wait and see. They won't want to rush him back, and nor do they need to. Famewo's doing a sterling job. If McNair comes in, he provides a little bit of extra cover. But in terms of, there's only just over a week. Come Tuesday, there'll be a week to go. So I still think even with the restrictions, it's going to be a fascinating end to the window. Luke, surely Ndala has to go back if he's not coming on instead of Akintola. I mean, the smart money would think that, but they really like him. They wanted to make, before the restrictions, they wanted to make Ndala permanent in January. So he's a player they really like. I don't think they'll want to let him go. He's still only 19, and you know, it's horses for courses. You bring players on to do different jobs, and maybe they thought, you know, I'm guessing the tactic, looking at the game, the tactic late on second half is when, you know, Akintola is a bit more cumbersome. Maybe you can stick the ball up to him, he can run on and make a nuisance of himself a bit more than Ndala likes it into his feet a little bit more. So I think probably Akintola, just for the release ball and to get them out when they're back five, sitting deep, trying to hold on to what they've got. You know, you can stick it in the channel, and Akintola, again, sublime or ridiculous, he'd either run onto it and stick it in the top corner, or run onto it and lay it off for somebody else, or he'll do something a bit daft and fall over his own feet and go head first into Rowe's head. But I can understand the change, but I don't necessarily think that symbols that Ndala's out the reckoning. I don't think that's the case. I think it was in that moment that Jurkovic felt that Akintola was probably a better to try and stretch the game and give them something to run onto, and they could just hack it out and get him chasing, and you never know what he's going to do. He could win. He's as liable to win a penalty as he is to give something away at the other end. Matthew says Jacob was solid. He's got a point to prove to Sergei. I thought Matty was dependable when he came on, and he just gives them that little bit of balance. There was one moment when he did really well to win the ball, and he was on the floor, and I think he handballed it, but the referee was blindsided, so he got away with it like 15-20 yards outside of the box, and he managed to clear. But yeah, I think in the little bits we've seen from Matty when he's come on, he's done a job, and I think that will be the case. He's not going to start, I don't think, ahead of Famewo. Well, obviously certainly not when Gilo's back. But Matt is reliable, he's dependable, and you know that you can stick him on in the final 20 minutes and he's probably not going to let you down. So that can only be a good thing. You know, if Giles comes back, is there a move for Jacob to go out and play regularly? I think at the moment they'd probably like to keep him around because of, you know, the injury situation, and Famewo's had problems. Obviously, Giles coming back with a problem, and you know, when a player comes back, you always run the risk of losing him again. So I think they probably would like to keep Matty. He might have other ideas. He might say, look, I want to go out and play. If somebody comes in, I want to go and play every week. He might also want to be part of this, because why wouldn't you? Let's see what else we've got. John, Swansea's triple substitution baffled me. Yeah, I would agree with that. It was a bit weird, and Ronaldo was having a lot of joy down the right-hand side. Yeah, I think those changes, and it did halt their momentum a little bit. You're right, and I think it was a strange one from their manager. But look, fair play. It worked for us. It helped us out. What else have we got here? Vicky, how good does you look? Absolutely. As I said before, he's an absolute terrier, and he's had one second half performance at Deepdale. He's already become a bit of a cult figure, hasn't he? Because when he went to warm up early in the first half, I think it was after 4 minutes, because Amir went down after a knock. I think he clashed with Franco, and he got a bit of a sore onto the bonds, and he was having treatment, and they all went out to warm up, of which he was one of them, and the North Stand were already chanting his name. And how can you not love him? Because his energy, his tenacity, he's direct, he gets at players, and that when he won the ball second half, and he on the left hand side, he little target to win the ball, ran in, and he had end product. He didn't skew the shot, he didn't get it blocked, he hit the target. And as I said before, Kyle probably should have scored. Lawrence Vigouroux pushes it back out. And to be fair, he makes a wonderful second save, but I don't think Joseph should give him a chance. In Joseph's form, I would have expected for him to have burst the net, but Vicky, he looks a real exciting player. Charlie, I thought the manager won the game after his substitutions were really controlled, although they had more possession. Yeah, his tactics were brilliant today. As I say, he realised second half where they were getting in. He closed off those avenues, and yeah, he made City go more defensive, but sometimes you've got to do that to win a game, and it doesn't have to be pretty at this stage of the season. It's about being effective, and that's what it was. He saw the danger, and he responded, and the players delivered the tactics to a T. Danny, that performance from Regan must surely motivate Adjun to get the new contract sorted. I would agree with that. I think you've got to give him a new deal. Absolutely. Liam, is McBurnie injured? I know he got ice, but the manager seems fairly relaxed. He was sore at the end of the game, but he don't half put a shift in. The pitches are heavy at this time of year. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how the next few days, but I don't think there's anything necessary to get too worked up over. Obviously, we hope, beyond hope, that it's not the situation that we had at Birmingham back in October, where he came off and that was him done for 8 or 9 games. Let's hope that's not the case. The manager didn't seem too concerned at full time. He was a bit more worried about Crooks, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But he didn't seem overly concerned about Oli, and I think having that clear week is crucial. But as I say, I'm sure we'll know more from Monday onwards, but let's hope it's nothing more than just a precaution for a guy that's worked his absolute knackers off over the last 3 games. Lee, I think we've covered outgoings. Sarah, how close is Gilo to coming back? Well, the plan was for him to be back at Blackburn. He should be back in training in the next week at some point. So once he's back in training, they'll make a decision on whether he's fit enough to be involved at Ewood Park or not. So that's one to keep an eye on. Obviously, we'll be with the manager next week in the build-up to Ewood Park, and we'll get a full lowdown from him on whether Gilo is able to be in the squad, or whether they're just going to be a little bit more careful. It wouldn't surprise me, if I'm honest, if they're just a little bit more cautious with Ryan, and probably, I know the manager said for quite a while Blackburn was the target, but they can move that can be pushed back, and they've got a lot of games coming up in February. Last thing you want to do is rush him back at Blackburn because you've told people that's when you want him back, and he aggravates it, or he does something that makes him out for another 2 or 3 weeks. So I think err on the side of caution would be the smart money. But let's see what happens over the next, as I say, they've got that clear week in training to see how Gilo gets back. He comes back into training. He may well be in the squad. He may well be on the bench. Whether he starts, we'll have to wait and see. But Akin Famewo's done a fine job deputising. And as I say, as you guys have pointed out, Matty Jacobs has been first class as well. All right, before we close and head off, evening to you as well, Lee. Paul says, excellent first half, negative defensive second half. You far better than Miller. He worked back and won the ball, something Miller doesn't do. Was glad to see Miller. A bit harsh, Paul, for me. I thought Miller was very good in the first half, and Miller plays on the front foot. He puts the ball at risk, and sometimes that's going to come off for you. Sometimes you're going to lose it. Let's not forget he's still coming back from a year out. Best part of. I thought he's having had a difficult couple of games against Stoke and Blackburn in the Cup. I think Miller's had a really good week. So, I think it was the right decision to bring him off. He did look tired. He'd just been booked. So I think it was the right decision. But I thought first half Miller was really, really lively, if I'm honest. So, and I wouldn't say it was negative defensive second half. I don't think that was by design. I just think they fell into the trap of Swansea were dominant. Swansea are always going to have a lot of the ball. That's the way they play. I think City were a bit fatigued. A lot of players that haven't played, Joseph didn't play the other night. He's got an injury. McBurnie had got a sore calf. Gowhart's not, that was only his second game back. You know, Lundstrom came on. He's not played a lot. Dow's come on. He's played once in 5 months, whatever it is. Famewo's not played a huge amount of football. That's half your team. You know, let's be honest. And the rest of them have played they've played 2 big games away from home in the space of a week. And I think it was natural that, you know, Swansea were gonna push. City were 2-0 up. So I don't think it was by design that they came out and stuck 11 men behind the ball and became defensive. I think it was the flow of the game. I think it was the way the game went, and there came a point in the game where they realised, you know, we've got to be pragmatic here, and we've got to settle for what we've got. We could go gung-ho, but we could risk losing the game 3-2, or even dropping 2 points. How many times under Liam did we see games like that, where they'd end up dropping the points, and they'd go from a winning position, and we're all coming away from here, and it's finished 2-2, and we're saying, bloody hell, they've dropped 2 points. Well, I'd rather them shut up shop and know they can keep them out and win the game, rather than go gung-ho, don't score, and end up drawing 2-2 or even worse. So I think they played the percentages, and I think they did the right thing personally. But as I say, game of opinions, and it is what it is. Danny, another goal from McBurnie without jars. Incredible penalty. I think the goalkeeper was expecting him to do what he did in the penalty shootout, and what we've seen him do before, and just sort of try and send the goalkeeper the wrong way and tickle it to the opposite corner. There was I think McBurnie was prepared for the goalkeeper expecting that, and it was a thumping finish, top corner, no goalkeeper saving that. So he keeps up his little run of goal. Lee says that little dribble from you, well, yeah, it was absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? Richard, in you, we've got a potential game changer. I mean, spare a thought for the Bristol City fans. In the space of a few days, they've lost you and Ennis Mehmeti. I know they've beat Sheffield Wednesday today, but you know, pretty much everybody at home beat Sheffield Wednesday, in fairness. But yeah, I thought that little cameo, what a player. It blows my mind they couldn't find a way to get him in their system. But anyway. Robert, second's possible, but love the playoffs. It's an amazing way to go up. It is if you win it. It's not so great if you lose it. But just for me, I think just enjoy being where they are. You know, that was the point the manager made. And I think it feels different to under Liam. I think under Liam, there was a pressure. The top 3 spaces had gone. You know, you got Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton were miles clear. You were fighting for 2 other spaces, realistically. You know, I think, well, the top 3 spaces were gone, and Southampton were 4th, weren't they? So you'd only got 5th and 6th that you were squabbling for. And I think there was a pressure, there was an expectation. Everybody came out at the start of the season and said, we want the playoffs. They spent a lot of money. You look at that squad, you look at Greavesy was in it, Alfie Jones, Mika, Tyler Morton, Jayden, Liam Delap. Obviously, Fabio came in January, Anna Sarori. There was a lot of big players in that squad. And I think there was a big pressure to get in the playoffs, and it was viewed as a bit of a, although it was still a great season, and it was the best season the club had had in a long time, or basically since promotion, in 16-17. I still think there was a pressure, and I think that Liam felt that pressure, and I think that affected the group in the second half of the season. There was a big pressure with the investment in the squad, with the playing squad, the team that we had. So I think there was a big pressure on everybody, and I think Liam and his staff felt that pressure. This is completely different. You know, City are doing better than everybody thought. So I think there is a freedom about the way they play, a freedom about the football club. Yes, the club isn't, you know, financially the club needs the money. Of course it does. Any team without parachute payments need the money, and the windfall of getting promoted would be huge. And I think given the way the season's panned out, I still think now there would be an element of disappointment if they missed out, because they're having such a good season. And I think the way the league is, it's a huge opportunity to go and get in the top 6. They may never have a better opportunity in the next few years. We'll never know that. They have got a wonderful opportunity, but I do think there is I just think there's a freedom about this at the minute, and I think that is borne out. If you look at a lot of the teams around City, you know, that are either challenging or aren't challenging. Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich, Sheffield United, huge pressure on them getting in into that top 6. You know, teams like City and Millwall are having an amazing season, and all power to us, and teams like Millwall as well that are absolutely flying. Even Middlesbrough, I think there's an expectation at Borough, and there has been for a few years with what they've spent. You know, it looks like they're signing Sarmiento for good money as well from Brighton. So Borough have spent a lot of money recently as well. So I think there's an expectation there. that they would challenge. But for City, it's not, say, a free hit necessarily, because I think when you look at the squad, you'd think there's a lot of good players in there, but nobody expected them to be fourth and 5 points off the top six with the game in hand at this stage. So, yeah, let's see how it goes. Right, before we finish, another applause for Regan from Michael. He was outstanding. I can't disagree. Paul says another comment on Miller is defensive players non-existent. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure I agree with that. I think, you know, he tracks back. He works hard. I think at Southampton and at Preston, he did a terrific job playing left wing back, which is a position he spoke candidly that he doesn't enjoy playing, and was one of the reasons he didn't go and join Preston under Ryan Lowe. He doesn't want to play left full back. It's not wing back. It's not something he feels he's competitive at or enjoys. But he does a job for the team. He's an attacking, dynamic, forward-thinking winger. But you know, he's not amazing going back. But I certainly think he puts a shift in and he tries. I think, you know, he does a job. And he puts a shift in. But I did think it was right to bring him off because he looked knackered after a busy week and he was on a booking. And the last thing they wanted was a tight challenge, a tight stick your leg out or do something a bit daft, and you're off and you're missing next weekend and City down to 10 men. Steve, Paddy McNair going to bring some much needed experience. Yeah, nearly, I think over 200 games in the Championship. Vastly experienced, good age. As long as he fits into the group and doesn't upset the harmony, which I've got no reason to believe he would. That's the key thing about bringing these players in, is the harmony is their biggest strength. Their team spirit, their togetherness, easy for me to say, is their biggest strength. So you wouldn't want to damage that. So hopefully Paddy adds to that. John, was he on 30 grand a week? You're referring to Palmer. I don't know the specifics, but he came in at a time a couple of seasons ago last summer under Walter, when they were, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if he was on something like that. Danny, the game would have been perfect for Collier to come on second half just to keep the ball and calm things down. Don't disagree, and that's why he, for me, is a really important signing. David, off topic, but I was talking about about somebody earlier. Update on the MKM redevelopment. I think they've got to try and sort out where the money's coming from before. I think they've got broad agreement from everybody they need to have agreement from about what they're going to do. But there's no point submitting firm and final plans for planning permission until you've got the money in the bank or a funding structure to pay for it. So I don't think at the minute there's the funding structure in place that can make it happen. You know, they can't get the money. Hasn't been, you know, there's not X amount of £1 million sitting